This was told by someone who's still not ready to give their name. It's been over 6 years, and I still haven't told anyone close to me the full story. Not even my parents. Some part of me feels like if I speak it aloud, it becomes more real. But silence only feeds the ghosts. So I'm telling it here. Quietly, privately. Maybe just to let it go. I used to make the drive from Portland to Northern California a few times a year. My folks live in a small town outside Eureka. I'd usually stop in Ashland or Medford overnight. But this time, I decided to push straight through. Thought I'd enjoy the solitude. I'd been dealing with the fallout of a rough breakup. You know how some breakups crack you open and make you feel human again, while others just erase you? This one was the latter. So I packed a duffel bag, filled the tank of my old Toyota Corolla, and hit the road. I took the scenic route, hugging the Oregon-Idaho border for a stretch before cutting back across toward California. Somewhere near Vail, things took a turn. I was maybe 4 hours past Boise, well into nothing. No cell service, no towns on the horizon, just forest, rocks, and 2-lane pavement. That's when my engine sputtered. The whole car jerked like a dying animal and coasted to a halt on the shoulder. No lights, no sound, no dashboard flicker. I popped the hood. But I'm not a car guy. I was stalling, hoping something would miraculously fix itself if I looked hard enough. A few minutes later, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. A white pickup truck slowed to a stop behind me. The driver stepped out. He was tall, maybe mid-40s, rugged in a way that suggested real physical labor. Grease stains on his jeans, heavy boots, a beard like barbed wire. "You break down?" he asked, wiping his hands on a rag. I nodded. "You're lucky I came by. I'm a mechanic, live a couple of towns east." I didn't question it. He had the look of someone who'd done this 100 times, confident, casual. He poked around under the hood, asked a few basic questions, then said it was probably a failed fuel pump. "I've got tools back at the shop," he added. "Might take an hour if you want to wait, or I could give you a ride to the nearest gas station." That's where I messed up. I didn't want to leave my car. I didn't want to sit there in silence either. So I asked if he had a phone I could use. Mine had no bars. He nodded and told me to grab my wallet just in case the shop charged a service fee. That should have been the second red flag. I turned to walk toward his truck, and that's when I heard the click. A gun. "Don't move," he said flatly. I froze. He pointed a small revolver at my side and reached into my back pocket, pulling out my wallet. Then my phone. Then the keys from my hand. "Don't bother running," he said. "Ain't no one out here but you and me." He told me to lie on the ground. I did. Face down on the cold gravel, heart jackhammering against the earth. Then, just as casually, he walked back to his truck, climbed in, and drove off. It took me nearly 30 minutes to start moving again. Every sound, every rustling tree or snapping twig, made me flinch. When I finally stood, I was lightheaded, nauseous, and empty-handed. I sat on the side of the road until another car, beat-up Subaru with California plates, pulled over. A woman, maybe in her 60s, asked if I was okay. I could barely speak. She drove me to a sheriff's outpost 2 towns over. The deputies took a statement. They were kind, but their eyes said it all. I was lucky to be alive. That stretch of road had no surveillance, no gas stations, no cameras. The truck could have gone anywhere. Eventually, my parents drove up from California and towed my car home. I didn't say much. Just told them I'd been robbed and didn't want to talk about it. I thought that was the end of it. 2 months later, I got a call from my credit card company. "We're seeing unusual activity," they said. "Power tools, electronics, hospital bills, all in your name." I froze. Asked them to list the charges. The town? Pocatello, Idaho. I'd never set foot there. I filed a police report, froze my accounts, changed my passwords, thought maybe the worst was over. Then came the hospital records. Someone using my name had received care at a walk-in clinic. Then a loan application. Then an address change was filed with the IRS. I felt like I was losing myself piece by piece. Every call, every letter, was a reminder that someone out there was pretending to be me and doing a better job of it. The police couldn't do much. Identity theft is tricky, they said. It's not always possible to track. I started drinking more than I should, sleeping less than I needed. I felt like my life had been hijacked. Then one night, out of desperation, I did something reckless. I started searching Craigslist listings in the Pocatello area. I had a gut feeling. Don't ask me why. That's when I found a listing for high-end power tools and electronics, almost a perfect match to the stolen purchases. The photos weren't blurry or vague. They were bold, too confident. I reached out under a burner email and pretended to be interested. The seller responded quickly. Cash only, public meetup spot. I passed the intel to the local police. To their credit, they listened. The sting went down in a Walmart parking lot. The seller showed up, saw the patrol cars moving in, and tried to run. Didn't make it far. Once in custody, he cracked under pressure. Told them he was just a middleman. Gave them a name. The name matched one of the false aliases used in my hospital records. The man? The one behind it all? Same building, same beard, same white pickup. He had a rap sheet longer than I could read in one sitting. Fraud, armed robbery, interstate theft. Part of a small organized group that targeted isolated drivers along rural highways from Washington to Utah. 5 arrests. Dozens of victims. I was just one of many. It took months to undo the damage. Even longer to feel like myself again. I don't travel much anymore. If I do, I stick to well-lit highways and populated rest stops. I've got a dash cam, emergency beacons, 2 prepaid phones, and a bat under the passenger seat. Overkill? Maybe. But once you've looked down the barrel of a stranger's gun, overkill starts to sound like wisdom. I still don't know why he didn't pull the trigger. Maybe I didn't look like I had much worth taking. Maybe he didn't feel like cleaning up a mess that night. Or maybe he just wanted my life instead of my death. And for a while, he had it. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm not trying to scare you off the road. But I will say this. When your gut tells you something's off, listen to it. Because on a quiet stretch of highway, far from anyone who knows your name, all it takes is one wrong choice to lose everything you are. I came back. Some people didn't. I've never been one to talk about the past, especially not this part of it. But sometimes, something happens that claws at you from the inside until you let it out, no matter how much time has passed. This happened in May 2006. I was 25 at the time, freshly stationed at a quiet airbase in Ellensburg, Washington. I was a communications specialist, and for the most part, it was exactly what I signed up for. Routine, structured, uneventful. But it also got boring real fast. Ellensburg isn't what you'd call a bustling city. Back then, if you blinked, you missed it. That's probably why when my buddies Tyler and Lauren pitched the idea of a road trip to Spokane, I didn't hesitate. It wasn't far, maybe 3 hours out. But when you've been living in the monotony of base life, even 3 hours of open road feels like an adventure. We loaded up Tyler's SUV around noon that Saturday. Lauren brought the snacks, salted almonds, Gatorade, and red vines, and I manned the aux cable, flipping through burned CDs we still kept in the glove box. The sky was clear. Early spring in the Pacific Northwest is still cold, but it had that soft warmth in the air like the season was making a promise. We took US Route 395 out east. If you've never driven it, imagine nothingness. Flat stretches of land, the occasional barn leaning at a permanent angle, fences sagging like tired shoulders. It's quiet, real quiet. About an hour in, Tyler pointed at the rear view. "You guys see that SUV?" Lauren leaned forward from the back seat. "The black one?" "Yeah," he said. "It's been back there since we passed that Shell station. Hasn't changed lanes once." I glanced over my shoulder. Sure enough, a dark-colored Suburban was a few car lengths behind us. Tinted windows, no front plate. "Probably just heading the same way," I said. But after the next lane change, when Tyler merged to pass a semi, the Suburban followed. When we changed back, it did too. I felt a chill, subtle but immediate. Then came the lights, blue and red, flickering from behind the Suburban's grille. "Oh, hell," Tyler muttered, easing the SUV to the shoulder. "Unmarked cop?" "Maybe," Lauren said. "Looks tactical." The Suburban stopped a good 10 yards behind us. No siren, no loudspeaker. The man who stepped out wasn't wearing a badge, just black tactical gear and a heavy-duty vest. There were no police markings, no patches, nothing. He walked slowly, not toward us, but around his vehicle. He circled once, then stood facing us, like he was sizing us up from a distance. Something felt off. In training, we were told to look for certain tells: body language, uniform inconsistencies, behavior under stress. This guy was checking boxes I didn't even know existed. Then 2 more men got out of the Suburban. They didn't speak, didn't move toward us. Just stood in formation, like shadows flanking the first guy. Lauren leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "Nobody move. Don't reach for anything. Don't open a door unless they give a clear instruction." We waited. Finally, the first man walked toward us, stopping at the passenger side window. He didn't ask for ID or registration. Instead, he pointed. "That your vehicle?" he asked. "Yeah," Tyler said. "Is there a problem?" The man ignored the question. He nodded toward Lauren's side of the car. "That's your bumper sticker?" Lauren glanced down. A faded decal read, "Proud U.S. Air Force Enlisted." She raised her eyebrows. "Yes, sir. We're all active duty." That word, active duty, landed like a brick dropped in still water. The man's face shifted. Just for a second. Like something behind his eyes had been recalibrated. He looked past me toward Lauren. "Communications, right?" he asked. She narrowed her eyes. "How'd you know that?" He didn't answer, just took a step back. Then, without another word, he turned on his heel and walked back to the Suburban. His 2 men followed. They got in, reversed onto the highway, and sped off, tires shrieking, lights off. We sat there in stunned silence. "What the hell was that?" Tyler asked finally. "I don't know," I said. "But that wasn't a traffic stop." Lauren sat back, crossing her arms. No name, no ID, no explanation. We eventually pulled back onto the highway. The rest of the drive to Spokane was quiet. None of us had the energy to talk. We spent the night at a cheap motel near the city center, but none of us really slept. By the time we got back to base the next day, it was already becoming a memory we were trying not to process too deeply. But then a week later, everything changed. I was on break, sitting in the lounge, when the news came on. Local broadcast. I wasn't paying much attention until a name caught my ear. Discovered just off Route 395, south of Ritzville. I looked up. The anchor's voice was somber. A mother and her 2 children had been found murdered and left in a shallow ditch. Authorities believed they were killed sometime late Saturday night. Their vehicle was missing, but a black Chevrolet Suburban was discovered abandoned several miles from the scene. Reported stolen 3 months earlier from Nevada. My stomach dropped. The Suburban. Our Suburban. I called Tyler and Lauren immediately. We met up in the chow hall, trying to piece it all together. "Same area," Tyler said, his voice low. "Same type of car. Same time frame." Lauren didn't say anything at first, then she looked up, dead serious. "They were going to kill us." We didn't want to believe it. But the pieces fell together too neatly. Tactical gear, no identification, no procedural protocol. The silent intimidation. The rapid departure the moment we mentioned military service. We contacted base security, then the local authorities. Filed statements. Gave descriptions. The investigators didn't tell us much, but I saw the way they looked at us, like we'd just missed something unthinkable. We were never contacted again. I think it's because they didn't want to scare us. Or maybe because they didn't want the public to know how close the killers had come to striking again. I still think about it, about the mother, her kids, and most of all I think about Lauren's bumper sticker. That small, faded decal, just a few inches across. It saved our lives. Whoever those men were, they were looking for victims, not service members. Maybe they assumed the risk of attacking trained military personnel wasn't worth it. Maybe they didn't want to deal with the attention a missing active duty soldier would bring. I don't know. But that sticker changed something. I keep it now. That exact same one. It's folded in the back of a photo album, next to a few old base passes and a shot of the 3 of us from that weekend. smiling on the edge of the Spokane River, trying to pretend nothing had happened. Tyler got out of the service the year after. He lives in Arizona now, runs a landscaping business. Lauren stayed in, got promoted, and I think she's somewhere overseas now. Me? I finished my term. Got a quiet job in communications, private sector. Good benefits, decent hours, normal life. But sometimes when I'm driving down a rural highway and I see an SUV in the rearview mirror, I feel it again. That tension. Sometimes all that stands between you and the worst moment of your life is a sticker on the back of a car. I've never liked driving in the snow. I grew up in upstate New York, so you'd think I'd be used to it by now. But no. Even after 30 winters, the thought of winding mountain roads blanketed in white makes my shoulders tense. But in January of 2016, I found myself doing exactly that. Driving through a snowstorm in my beat-up 2005 Dodge Ram 1500 on my way to a cabin near Lake Placid. My buddy Nate had invited me up for a long weekend of snowboarding. Said he'd already stocked the fridge and the wood stove was roaring. The cabin belonged to his uncle, tucked away deep in the Adirondacks, far from the nearest town. I didn't hesitate. I'd been overdue for a break, and Nate's always been like a brother to me. I left Albany late, around 7:30 p.m., a little later than planned. The snow had already started to fall by then. Light at first, but steady. The farther north I got, the heavier it became. By the time I was deep into Keene Valley, following Route 73 into the heart of the mountains, visibility had dropped to almost nothing. Just my headlights and the white blur of snow rushing toward me like static on an old TV. That stretch of road? It's something else in winter. Narrow, twisting, lined with towering trees and sheer drop-offs. No streetlights, no guardrails, just you, the road, and whatever waits in the woods. That's when the temperature gauge started to rise. At first, I thought maybe it was a sensor glitch. The truck had pulled stunts like that before, but a few minutes later, the needle was pinned in the red, and the engine was starting to stutter. I knew I had to pull over. I found a shallow turnout just past a bend, barely enough room to park without slipping into a ditch. I killed the engine and popped the hood. Steam hissed up into the night air, fogging my glasses as I leaned over. The radiator hose looked bloated, but I wasn't sure. I'm no mechanic. I just knew I wasn't going anywhere fast. That's when I checked my phone. No service, not even a flicker of a bar. I was standing on the side of the road in sub-zero temperatures with an overheated engine, no cell signal, and no sign of life in either direction. I hadn't seen another car for at least 30 minutes. It was quiet in that way that only deep snow makes things quiet. Everything felt padded. Software, too still. I sat back in the cab with the engine off, wrapping myself in a blanket Nate had told me to bring, just in case. I watched as the windshield fogged up and the cold crept in. Then, headlights. They appeared in the rear view like a promise. A silver Subaru Outback slowed as it approached, then pulled in behind me. Relief flooded my chest. The driver stepped out, a middle-aged man with a gray beard and a thick red scarf. He waved through the snow and approached slowly. "You all right?" he asked, his breath hanging in the air. "Overheated," I said. "No signal out here." He nodded. "Yeah, this stretch is a dead zone. You want to use my phone?" I hesitated, but he was offering, and I was out of options. He handed it over without a second thought. I stepped a few feet away from his car and called Nate first. No answer. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. Then I called the number for the towing company Nate had mentioned earlier in case of emergencies. A guy named Doug picked up on the second ring. Said he'd be there in about 45 minutes, give or take. I gave him a rough description of where I was. Right past the wooden "Welcome to Keene Valley" sign, second turnout past the icy bridge. When I turned back to hand the phone over, the man was already walking to his car. "Good luck, man," he called. "Stay warm." "Thank you," I said. He gave me a small wave, got back into his Subaru and pulled away, headed in the same direction I was going. I climbed back into the truck and started it just long enough to get the heat running. Steam was still coming off the hood, but the warmth was better than nothing. I set an alarm on my phone to go off in 30 minutes, just to make sure I didn't fall asleep or get too comfortable. The truck idled, snow tapped against the windows, and then, bang, a sharp, violent knock on the passenger side glass. I jumped, heart in my throat, eyes wide. A man stood outside. Hood pulled low, heavy black coat, gloves, boots. I couldn't see his face through the frost and reflection, but he was motioning, urgently. He looked frantic. I cracked the window a few inches. "Please," he said. "I'm lost. I've been out here for hours. I'm freezing." His voice was ragged, pleading. He clutched his arms like he was trying to hold his body together. I didn't respond right away. Something in me, the part you don't hear often but know when it speaks, whispered, "Don't open the door." I asked where he came from. "Got turned around off the hiking trail," he said. "I've been walking for miles." "In a snowstorm? At night?" I looked down. No footprints behind him. Just compacted snow from my tires. Then he tried the handle. It was locked. His tone changed. "Open the damn door, man!" He slammed his palm against the glass. Again. "Are you deaf? I'm gonna freeze out here!" My hands were already on the wheel. I didn't think. I just moved. I shifted into drive. The truck groaned in protest, but the wheels caught. As I pulled away, I saw him in the mirror, still banging, now chasing. He tripped once, then disappeared into the swirling snow. I drove. Didn't care if the engine cracked in half. I was done sitting still. I crested the next hill, heart hammering. That's when I saw the Subaru, parked awkwardly on the side of the road. No lights, no driver. I slowed as I passed, and that's when I noticed the footprints. They started behind the Subaru, leading up the road, toward where I had been. He hadn't been lost. He'd parked, waited, then doubled back. The Good Samaritan wasn't trying to help me. He'd been scouting me, setting up. I kept driving until I saw the flashing amber lights of the tow truck. Doug was leaning against the side, sipping from a thermos. He waved as I pulled up. "You're lucky you weren't stuck long," he said. "These roads are no joke in winter." I got out, trying to stay calm. I pointed back down the hill. "There's a guy out there," I said. "Tried to get into my truck. Same car as the guy who stopped earlier." Doug's expression shifted. "What car?" "Silver Outback, parked half a mile back." He blinked. "You say he tried to force his way in?" I nodded. "Said he was lost, but it was him. Same guy who let me use the phone." Doug didn't ask for more. Just muttered, "Jesus," and got to work hooking up my truck. We didn't talk much on the way to the shop, but just before I got out, Doug looked at me and said, "Don't know what you ran into out there, but you did the right thing." I made it to Nate's cabin late that night. Told him everything. We sat in silence for a while, staring at the fire. Neither of us slept well. We still went snowboarding that weekend, but my mind wasn't on the slopes. It kept drifting back to the Subaru, the fake kindness, the fist on the window. Sometimes you don't realize how close you came to vanishing on a snowy road until it's already behind you.